Forget the mafia. The most dangerous person in The Sopranos didn't carry a gun. She raised one. Why did Livia Soprano want her son dead? It's the central paradox of The Sopranos, the one question that resists a clean answer, because it deals not with logic or strategy, but with pathology. On paper, Tony's death offers Livia no advantage. He pays her bills, ensures her comfort, and provides her with the very security she pretends not to care about. Yet for a woman like Livia, security was never the prize. Control was. When Tony removed her ability to manipulate, he might as well have signed his own death warrant. The move to Green Grove, a retirement community, as Tony insists, like a luxury hotel at Cap d'Antibes, wasn't merely an insult to Livia's pride. It was a symbolic dethroning. To be placed there was to be declared irrelevant, and irrelevance is the one thing a malignant narcissist cannot tolerate. For years, she ruled her small kingdom through guilt, manipulation, and emotional terror. Tony was both her subject and her proof of power. By placing her in the home, selling her house, and daring to assert authority over her, he committed an unforgivable act. He showed her that she no longer mattered. Livia's motives, then, are not pragmatic, but existential. When control slips through her fingers, she doesn't just lose comfort, she loses identity. She can no longer define herself through dominance. Her fury over the retirement home is only the spark. The real fuel is humiliation, the unbearable realization that her son has grown beyond her reach. In her twisted logic, better to destroy him than to live powerless in his shadow. It's worth noting how effortlessly she manipulates Junior into doing her bidding. Livia's genius lies in her ability to feign helplessness while pulling the strings. With Junior, she finds a man equally wounded by Tony's ascent, and she feeds his resentment with surgical precision. Her grief becomes a performance, her frailty an act of power. The irony is that she engineers the hit with the same emotional detachment one might use to plan a dinner party. The fact that she's essentially signing her own financial death sentence doesn't matter. Narcissistic rage doesn't do math, it only calculates revenge. Psychologically, Livia embodies the malignancy of a personality that cannot coexist with happiness, hers or anyone else's. She is a black hole of despair, a person who experiences joy only through the misery of others. Watching Tony fall on the concrete, she laughs. It's not cruelty for cruelty's sake, but the sick thrill of dominance. If he's hurt, she's still relevant. It's the same instinct Tony later replicates with Janice, mocking her under the guise of affection. He inherits her disease of control, her inability to let others heal or grow without sabotage. Some argue that Livia loved Tony, citing the box of his childhood mementos she kept. But love, for people like Livia, is merely ownership with sentimentality. She preserved Tony's things not out of maternal affection, but because his successes reflected on her. Janice and Barbara had the good sense to escape her orbit. Tony stayed, and thus remained a usable extension of her ego. The favorite child is not loved more deeply, only exploited more thoroughly. Her affection for Junior follows the same pattern. She doesn't love him, she loves what he allows her to control. Through him, she can still play the grand matriarch, whispering in ears, steering fates. Even her supposed grief serves a purpose. In Livia's ideal world, her son's murder would have transformed her into a tragic heroine, the poor mother whose boy was gunned down before his time. She would dine out on that sympathy for the rest of her life, hanky in hand, center stage once again. Of course, one cannot discuss Livia without invoking the specter of mental illness. Many diagnose her with borderline personality disorder. Others call her a textbook narcissist. Labels are convenient, but insufficient. The truth is, she is not a clinical puzzle to be solved. She is a moral void to be acknowledged. The writers of The Sopranos understood this, wisely avoiding any tidy psychological explanation. Even Dr. Melfi's attempts to analyze her through Tony's stories amount to educated guesswork. Livia's madness is not chemical, it's spiritual. She represents the emotional rot that seeps through generations, infecting Tony, just as she was infected by her own disappointments. What disappointments exactly? Livia's bitterness is rooted in a life that failed to deliver on its promises. She likely never wanted children, except as insurance, tokens to keep Johnny Boy close, and to secure the glamorous life she imagined a mob wife would bring. Instead, she got mediocrity. A small house, a philandering husband, and the slow decay of whatever charm she once possessed. By the time Tony grows up, she's trapped in a body that no longer inspires desire, and a life that no longer commands respect. Every smile becomes an insult. Every act of kindness, a reminder of failure. Her hatred toward Tony is therefore a grotesque projection. He is the living embodiment of her wasted life, his confidence mocking her weakness, his independence mocking her dependence. When he covers for his father during her miscarriage, she never forgives him. In her eyes, Tony becomes the continuation of Johnny's betrayal, a daily reminder of the man who humiliated her and the boy who sided with him. Her revenge festers quietly for decades until Green Grove gives it shape. The nursing home merely crystallizes a resentment that has been simmering since his childhood. And yet, The Sopranos never offers the satisfaction of clarity. We are left, like Tony himself, circling the same question. Did she ever love him? The answer, of course, depends on what one means by love. Livia's version of it is parasitic. Love as dominance, affection as leverage. When Tony goes to therapy, she perceives not self-improvement, but betrayal. He's telling a stranger about her sins, and worse, he's trying to get better. For someone like Livia, self-betterment in others is intolerable. It implies she caused pain, and therefore is not perfect. Her instinctive response? Obliterate the threat. This is where the show's brilliance lies. Livia's plot against Tony is not a lapse of reason. It's the ultimate expression of her personality. She cannot survive without control, and she cannot control without cruelty. Killing Tony, in her twisted cosmology, restores order. If she can't have power over him, no one will. Even her potential remorse is self-centered. She would have basked in the tears, the pity, the whispered stories about her tragic loss. It's not that she fails to grasp the finality of death. It's that she values attention more than life itself. To call her a monster is too easy. Monsters at least know they are monstrous. Livia believes she's the victim, eternally wronged, forever misunderstood. She doesn't see manipulation. She sees justice. She doesn't feel guilt. She feels wounded pride. She would tell you she never meant harm. People simply forced her hand. Tony didn't die because she wanted him dead, she'd say. He died because he made her feel small. In the end, that's the tragedy of Livia Soprano. A woman so consumed by her own emptiness that destruction becomes her only form of creation. Her life is a slow suicide carried out through others. Every cruel remark, every calculated silence, every smirk at her son's pain is another way of proving she still matters. When Carmela, years later, tears into Janice's sentimental eulogy, the truth lands with surgical precision. Everyone in that room knows what Livia was. The audience knows it too. She didn't just ruin her son's life. She built him in her image, condemned him to repeat her cruelties while despising himself for it. In that sense, she succeeded completely. So why did Livia want Tony dead? Because she could not stand to see him live without her shadow. Because his autonomy was her annihilation. Because for her, control was oxygen, and Tony had finally learned how to breathe on his own. That's the secret genius of The Sopranos. Its central villain isn't a mob boss, but a mother. And not an evil mother in the fairy tale sense, but something far more realistic, and therefore far more terrifying. A mother whose love feels like obligation, whose approval is always one manipulation away, whose smile curdles the second she's not the center of attention. Livia Soprano doesn't need a diagnosis. She needs an exorcism. But Tony never gets one. He inherits her ghosts, feeds them, and passes them along. That's the true legacy of the Sopranos family. Not crime, not violence, but the curse of emotional inheritance. The sins of the mother, written in guilt and gasoline, passed down like family silver. Livia wanted Tony dead not because she hated him, but because she couldn't stand to lose the only power she ever truly had, the power to make him suffer. In that sense, the hit wasn't about killing him at all. It was about keeping him hers, forever trapped in her orbit, even in death.